You know the details. I don't need to rehash them for you.
Yes, thank you. If you look at the provisions of Section 305, subsection 4, subsection 5, and subsection 6, you will, let me start from what happened at the National Assembly when the Constitution says that we require 2/3 of the members. How do you calculate 2/3 with the ayes having it?
No, they said attendance register.
Attendance.
Honorable
They took attendance.
Tajuddin Abbas said they took attendance. When Obi Agwocha said there must be a head count. So that we Nigerians can know who was there and who voted and how.
You see, first and foremost, the rule of the Senate, if you start from the rule of the Senate, the drafters of that rule knew what they were doing. When they, in the state of declaration of a state of emergency, they proposed an executive session where nobody, no Nigerian will see what was transpiring. So let's go into executive session.
Closed session.
Closed session. Nobody will see them. At the end of the day, some people will come out and say, no, we opposed it in closed session. We didn't see. You can, at every time, on matters of national importance, the Senate has, at some instances, stand out their rules to ensure transparency. But in this case, first and foremost, you insisted this is the rule and it is sacrosanct. We're talking about constitutional matters here. You say there is danger, imminent danger, or that there is crisis. And so, the constitution required 2/3 majority of the members of the Senate and the members of the House of Rep. You now go with those in support say aye and those against say nay, and then the ayes have it. I've been trying to calculate, that 2/3 using voice vote. You say you took attendance of members, and so if you took attendance, would it not be better and more transparent for you to also show us through particular votes, and since the constitution requires 2/3, so that Nigerians will say, yes, this was who voted for and this is who voted against. But this attitude of everybody just swimming and then we're lost. So, but before then, let me backtrack a little to even the state of emergency declaration. The president referred to the Supreme Court judgment and as the basis for the declaration and then the subsequent bomb blast and destruction of pipeline. Before the Supreme Court judgment, if the president had come to say there was chaos, the question I would have asked, are you the court? Why not wait for the court to make a pronouncement? After the court pronouncement, the court had cured whatever defect, constitutional defect there was in Rivers State.
Yes.
The court had cured it, and parties had gone back to respecting and responding to the judgment of the court. And that was why the governor extended a letter to the State House of Assembly. The State House of Assembly also met and invited members of the state electoral bodies to appear before them. And I'm aware that 3 members appeared before the state electoral body, the Senate, the House of Assembly. So, if you look at the provisions of Section 11, subsection 4, you couldn't say that the House of Assembly was not sitting. If you now say there is, I also would say that the statement credited to the governor was a reckless statement. A governor should have been making such statements saying that he would tell the Rivers boys went to launch or went to deploy.
Very bad,
reckless statement. And I think that anybody could have capitalized on that statement, including his opponents. Because the Ijaw boys that we're talking about, they are Savannah boys. The crisis didn't happen in the Ijaw area. It happened in the Ogoni area. So the opponent could have capitalized on such a statement to cause that crisis. And then, are we saying that the federal government cannot investigate such a crisis? To say, okay, let's even investigate this and know where it is coming from. And so you just muddled up all of the issues, all of the constitutional issues, all of the challenges, and then you declare a state of emergency. I've searched the entire gamut of this constitution. People have referred to the Western region when Maje Kudumi was appointed as sole administrator, referred to Atiku and Obasanjo's era during the Plateau State, Darie, and then the Ekiti issue. I also want to draw the attention of the same people to when Goodluck Jonathan declared the state of emergency, and the statement of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu as opposition leader then, he said it was demonic. It was demonic, and it was smack of, desecrating democratic structures and also power grabbing in the then president's march to 2015. And so, what has changed? Is it no longer that Democrat that once preached that democratic structures cannot be destroyed? Even in that case, Goodluck Jonathan did not suspend the democratic institutions in those 3 states. But the military that were asked to go keep peace actually, kept peace. So in this case, you say you are relying on precedent, and you suspend democratic structures. And yet, the last question, sorry, Doctor, the last question I want to ask, if the president declares a state of emergency in the entire country, will he suspend himself from office?
Good question, like you asked yesterday.
I raised that question 2 days ago, but quickly, there's a lot to talk about. I hope we'll get the time today. I understand Senator Magnus Abe has now joined us. Senator Abe, thank you for joining us on the morning show. Well, you are a major stakeholder in Rivers State politics. Could you tell us how you feel now that your state is now under the leadership of a sole administrator, a man from Akpabio who will be receiving money on behalf of the people of Rivers State? Although we hear that some of your, people, particularly members of the State House of Assembly and others that may not be reported, have gone to the sole administrator to pay homage. So it's not just the National Assembly that has embraced this. Some people in Rivers too, they are already going to sole administrator Ibokete Abbas, retired military Vice Admiral, to pay homage. Have you gone yet to pay homage? Where do you stand in this matter?
Dr. Abati, good morning, and thank you for having me on the show. First of all, as a Rivers man, I want to say clearly that this is not the situation that we would have wanted or we would have envisaged in our state. But the average person in Rivers State is just a citizen who is looking for an atmosphere to make progress with their families, to pursue their daily bread, and be able to go about their livelihood. And I think that most of the people in Rivers State this morning are relieved to see that there is an opportunity for the state to come back together and be able to once more do what every other Nigerian is expected to do at this time, which is to look for a way to get their children to go to school, treat themselves if they're ill, look for their daily bread, and go about their daily lives. On this whole issue, Dr. Bati, let me say that I have been a member of the Nigerian Senate, and closed-door sessions are how the Senate deals with sensitive issues. Because what happens during the closed-door session is that information that may not be public, because you're dealing with a security situation, information that may not be made public at that point can be divulged and shared with the senators in confidence. People must also remember that the senators are elected officials of the government. The Senate, the legislature, is not a separate government. The legislature are elected members of the same government. And so they have the same responsibility, the same obligation as the president to ensure the stability, progress, and security of the nation. And so when sensitive issues come up, they will be given information that may not be given to the entire public. So a closed-door session is one of the means by which senators can share such information without the cameras being present to make what information should be private public. Secondly, the appointment of a sole administrator at this time, I believe, is timely, because clearly anybody who had eyes and ears and understands the dynamics of Nigerian politics could have seen clearly that the situation in Rivers State was clearly intractable. And this kind of action that the president has taken is timely, and I believe that it serves the interest of all the parties to this conflict because it gives them an opportunity to reset. I think that warmongering, rabble-rousing, and all this kind of talk that led us into this kind of situation in the first place needs to be stepped down, and wise counsel should prevail at this time. That's what I believe.
Well, thank you so much for your belief, Senator Abbey. Just to quickly clarify, you made a few statements around the fact that now students can go back to school, people can go back to work. Was this not happening in Rivers State? Can you share with us what the status of security was? Because we've heard reports as well that things were calm. It wasn't a war zone. People were going about their duties. In fact, it was after the declaration of the state of emergency that people became a bit apprehensive. And I recall the morning where we had our correspondent on ground, things were a bit tempered. So can you share with us what the state was? Was it in complete disarray? Did it seem like there was, anything could spark an outrage from what you said? And then for Mr. Shoma, I'd like to ask you with regards to the release of funds to the sole administrator, in terms of how the constitutionality and legality of that, especially because the oversight function will then fall on the Federal Executive Council in terms of how publicly spends money. So effectively, the president is the governor of Rivers State currently acting through the sole administrator. What is that legal? I'll start with Senator Abbey and then I'll come to Mr. Oshoma.
Yes, thank you very much. What I want to say is that there are different natures and kind of emergencies that may arise in a sovereign state like the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And in the case of Rivers State, you had a situation where governance in the state had come effectively to a deadlock. The law of this country and the law of all democracies across the world is that appropriation is the function of the elected representatives of the people. And where there is no appropriation, there can be no disbursement. Even in the United States of America, we see a situation where sometimes the Democrats and the Republicans cannot agree with the president and all that, and they come to a deadlock and the government effectively shuts down. And the kind of situation that we had in Rivers State was a situation where clearly there had been a total deadlock, and it would have been impossible for the government to function. In fact, in the words of the Supreme Court, they said there was no government in Rivers State as presently constituted. And I want to say, with every respect, that the navigation of the political terrain of leadership is as important as the ability to be able to build physical roads and bridges. If you're the leader of a state and you do not show the capacity to be able to navigate the political terrain in such a manner that the state can continue to run effectively, and it is beginning to affect the security of major industrial and economic lifelines of the nation, the president has not just an obligation, but a duty to step in and ensure that this situation is able to be managed effectively in the interest of the citizens. And I think that in the case of Rivers State, that is a situation that the president saw. Because if you had left us where we were, the members were set on a course of impeachment. These are members that for over 16 months were denied any kind of role in the government and were totally locked out, and all their statutory and constitutional responsibilities were denied them. And this was a governor that was set on a path with 2-3 members, which we all know was a constitutional impossibility and had been so declared by the Supreme Court.
All right.
So in that kind of logjam, and the whole issue was spilling out, the president had an obligation to act, and he acted timelessly.
All right.
And I think what the president has done throws a lifeline both to the governor and to the legislature for them to be able to rethink and re-navigate the situation at hand. So to continue to inflame passions and make insinuations that are not realistic in the circumstances is not in the interest of the people of Rivers State. That is the truth.
Okay, thank you so much.
And so we need to tone it down and give the state an opportunity to breathe. And let me finish what I'm saying, please.
Yeah, because of our time.
Yes.
I thought you'd made your point. Thank you so much. Mr. Shoma, I just want to get very quickly. Also, this thing around, there was potential breakdown of law and order in the state.
Let's, we operate a constitutional democracy.
Yes.
Section 105, Section 305, subsection 3. The president shall have power to issue a proclamation of a state of emergency only when the federation is at war, the federation is in imminent danger of invasion or involvement in a state of war, there is actual breakdown of public law, public order, and public safety in the federation or any part thereof to such extent as to require extraordinary measure to restore peace and security. There is a clear and present danger of an actual breakdown of public order and public safety in the federation or any part thereof, requiring extraordinary measure to avert such danger. There is an occurrence of imminent danger or the occurrence of any disaster or natural calamity affecting the community or a section of the community in the federation. There is any other public danger which clearly constitute a threat to the existence of the federation, or the president received a request to so do in accordance with provision of subsection 4 of this section. That's subsection 4, the governor requesting the president to declare a state of emergency. So now let's come to the issue, because I feel it is the people who are supporting the president and telling people that, look, let's de-escalate, that are actually escalating the crisis. Yes, there was a constitutional crisis in Rivers State. And the Supreme Court, which is the statutory arm of government, constitutionally responsible to look into the issues were submitted before them. And they looked into the issues and condemned it and said parties should go back and rectify. And parties actually went back to rectify. So now that parties had rectified, was there still an imminent danger? The answer is no. And then the idea of, the people, there was a palpable tension in the state and all of that. If you look at the provisions of Section 188, subsection 1 to 9, it spells out the provisions, how an impeachment of a governor can be carried out. And then the Supreme Court has reiterated also, in the case of Peter Obi and the Anambra State House of Assembly and Ladoja's case, that you cannot invoke subsection 10 except you comply with subsection 1 to 9. So a situation where the House of Assembly is threatening to impeach a governor, and then the House of Assembly runs into a logjam, do you now need to help the House of Assembly by declaring a state of emergency and say the parties are quarreling? These people are now, because it is not about insecurity. That is why the National Assembly is saying they want to set up a committee to reconcile. Are you reconciling insecurity? So we all know where this is coming from. This is clearly political. And so that's why also the senator is saying that it will give both parties. Are we also saying that in Nigeria today, so once you have a quarrel between or misunderstanding between the House of Assembly and the executive arm of government, and then we should declare a state of emergency, for 4 years, a governor refused to swear in members of the...
Didn't Wike himself have 6 lawmakers at a point?
I don't even want to go there now. In Edo, the governor refused to swear in about 11 or 14 lawmakers. Yeah. The matter was submitted to the court, even though the court spent 4 years and it moved between 9 judges and it was never heard. A state of emergency was not declared in Edo. In fact, the roof of, while I'm not encouraging removal or destruction of a state house of assembly like Fubara did, which is condemnable, but a state of emergency was not declared. In the Northeast, as I speak, people are using ransom to do TikTok. Yeah. That is clear danger and threat to our national security and peace. Farmers cannot go to farm. These places, there is no state of emergency in these places. You have two arms of government, two independent arms of government that are supposed to checkmate each other, are quarreling, and they have refused to sit down and resolve their issues. The court had helped them to resolve, and we are saying that is a ground for declaring a state of emergency. And so does that mean now that you have a crisis in Osun State, where the former local government and present local government chairman at loggerhead, so the president would...
Some people have started saying
exactly.
The state of emergency.
In Benue State, as we speak now, the governor and the chief judge of the state are at loggerhead. And so, are we saying that the president should declare state of emergency?
Real quickly.
So how many areas are we going to declare state of emergency? Quickly, please, on the issue of allocation. The Supreme Court ruled. Before now, the federal government approached the Supreme Court under Section 7 of the Constitution, requesting that the Supreme Court should make a pronouncement that under no guise can a state governor suspend a democratically elected local government chairman. And the Supreme Court so agreed with the APC and the federal government. That same federal government today is saying that they have powers to suspend a democratically elected governor and state house of assembly because the two cannot agree on what should happen in Section 188. And now, the same court, the same highest court in the land said, don't release allocation to a government that is not democratically elected. And now you appointed a sole administrator, you are going to flout the constitution and release allocation. And so that means it is not about fighting insecurity. It's about taking River State through the back door and not about insecurity, because if it's about insecurity, you take charge of the areas and find solution to the security challenges in those areas and not take over the entire state.
Okay. Real quickly. Couple of things. I want clarification for public education. You know, I made mention of the fact that Minister Wike at some point when he was governor had 6 lawmakers. Can you throw more light as regards what happened around that time? Another question is, I think in the conversation here, somebody was saying that the Senate should remember that they are also, sort of like, a part of the government and everything. So I'm asking, Dr. Abati, based on the spirit of the law by Baron de Montesquieu, where is separation of powers here? Are we, or like Baron Montesquieu said, are we now practicing separation of power or fusion of powers? Because Baron Montesquieu talked about those two concepts in the spirit of laws that I read. Separation of powers or fusion of powers. I want you to answer that. And for Mr. Magnus Abbey, Senator Magnus Abbey, the question I have for you is this. Please, can you show us with evidential proof the insecurity that is happening in River State? Hope you know that the transnational pipeline that was blown up, I started working again a day after. And hope you know the 2 other incidents of bombings around that area. NNPC has discarded some of them that say it was just a flare. So please, can you plot us the state of insecurity, the fighting and the killings that were happening on the road, in rivers, in Port Harcourt that warranted, and also the arguments on those that support the government is always that things were not fixed. But this was the same Fubara that wrote to the House and said, let's represent the budget. But the House rebuffed him and said they were going to go it alone by pushing for his impeachment. So show me the fairness in all this conversation. But let Mr. Liboros answer first, because you are always taking, the front part. So please, can you answer, put those clarity as regards, the things I talked about?
Briefly. Yeah,
managing time.
Please, thank you. You see, that's anytime there is such a constitutional crisis, whether by 2 lawmakers, 3 lawmakers, 6 lawmakers, it is for the court to deal with. Because at every given time, there are situations where you have, even off-cycle election, there are situations where a governor comes in and you have members in the State House of Assembly who are not members of his party. What he does is to woo them back to his party. In Wike's time, election was conducted for just, in some areas in River State, election was not conducted. because they couldn't conduct election because of insecurity in those areas. And I remember the INEC attempted to conduct those elections on 2 different occasions, and it was not successful. But did they declare a state of emergency in Rivers?
Was there any point that Wike had 6 lawmakers?
Because the election was not conducted.
So he had 6 lawmakers?
Yes, it was. I don't know. I can't remember the numbers now, but because elections were not conducted in those constituencies, lawmakers could not be sworn in with the rest. And there was no state of emergency in that state until INEC dealt with it. Even as I speak now in Edo State, you have a governor who is a governor of the APC, and the speaker is in PDP. They are working harmoniously. And it's about give and take. If the parties could not sit down, and the Supreme Court had helped them to resolve the issue, do you now need to say, I believe, and I can clearly say this, that this pipeline issue was contrived. It was contrived to create this scenario and then declare state of emergency and say, oh, let the people go and settle. Is that what the constitution required?
Please talk to us about the separation of power or fusion of power. Because I think somebody was saying about it.
Seriously, what we have here is a fusion of power. And that is why somebody said that once this matter gets to the National Assembly, the current National Assembly will find any excuse to adopt and support Mr. President. So what were this security issue? This is security, the issues, the information could have been taken at the executive session, and then the voting can be done publicly. But when this information was not taken at the, because from what we heard from some senators also, there was no information that was taken at the executive session. And this idea of kowtowing to the whims and caprices of the executive, and I am also, ashamed, because I know that's what they all do, which is what led to this fight. A governor would want the State House of Assembly to be an extension of the executive, and that is what we have taken to the national level. Before now, we used to have a vibrant House of Representatives, but unfortunately today, we don't no longer expect anything from the House of Rep, don't talk of Senate.
Okay. We need to go to Senator Magnus. Please, empirically prove for us the insecurity in the states. And also confirm for us, didn't the governor make attempts to represent the budget and write to the lawmakers, but they rebuffed him? Was that a level of fairness? But prove to us the insecurity, the fighting in Rivers State that was constant, the shooting on the streets that led to this state of emergency.
Erufai.
Yes, sir.
Erufai, just calm down. Calm down. I don't have to prove anything to you. Your position on this matter is known. And what I want to say to you people is that it is important. Yes, it's true. It's true. I don't have to prove anything
answer
to you.
Answer question now.
What I want to say to you people
Senator,
is that
you have a right to answer the question. I'm just saying prove to me. Senator, you see, we are making arguments here.
I don't have
copious
to prove
logical arguments.
Why do I have to prove
so
anything
please prove
to
to me, Senator,
that
there was so much insecurity.
Or defend it.
Defend your statement that there was so much insecurity. You said it before. Defend it.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
Listen. I don't have to prove anything to you. The position you people have taken is known to the entire country. But all I want to say to you is that for the sake of the people of Rivers State, it is important that we have a balance. There are 2 sides to every coin. And it is important that both sides are represented in issues. You come here, we have an elected president. The president has information that you and I do not have. And he has told you the reasons why the state of emergency was declared is clearly set out in the speech of the president to the entire nation on that issue. You have a different opinion, but you don't have that power to overturn what the president has said. The president has presented what led him to that decision to the national. I'm coming, sir. Just allow me to talk.
Yes.
The president has presented what led him to that decision to the National Assembly, which is the body that our constitution, elected by the Nigerian people, has set up to review what the president has done. And they were unanimous in their decision to stand by what the president did. You have a right not to agree with it, but it is not proper for us to come here and begin to present a scenario, make speculations, and say things that obviously have no foundation whatsoever in reality. For the sake of the people of Rivers State, I want to appeal to all of us as Nigerians. Let us give peace a chance. And it is important that we remember that there are 2 sides to every coin. You don't take everything. I'm sorry, sir, just a minute. I don't want to argue. Let me just say my own bit, please. you remember that there are two sides to every issue. Yes. Opposition members, those who are opposed to the president, have gathered to sell a narrative because they think that they can profit politically from the crisis in Rivers State. Let me sit here and say clearly that they cannot. What is important to Rivers people at this time is that we should allow common sense and wise counsel to prevail. I have been looking at what is happening in the state. We saw the conduct of the governor that led up to this crisis. The governor is the chief executive, he is the head of the government of the state, and it was his responsibility to manage both the political, economic, social, and whatever challenges he faces in the course of his governance. He chose the path that he chose because he was listening to people that he should not have listened to. Some of the people he listened to, let me take the case of a fellow governor who is one of his strongest supporters. He had the same issue in his state. In his state, when he had the issue, did he come out openly to confront his predecessor who had helped him into power? He did not. While the predecessor was fighting him, he gave him his ticket back to the Senate, but blocked his boys who were all in the SDP. They didn't have a total showdown the way he now was supporting in Rivers State. And at the end of the day, when the price comes, it is the man who is sitting in the seat that will stand alone. We saw it in the House of Reps. All those people that were shouting for Fubara to continue to do this, and coming on a rise, they were in the House of Reps. They had the chance. Okay, you say it was a voice vote. At least you could have opened your mouth to say nay. Did they do it? Okay. So let us be practical. Senator, this is a political situation that was going to result in a total breakdown of law and order. And the president, as the president of this country, acted in the interest of the Nigerian state. Senator, nobody should sit down and begin to accuse the president in this kind of matter. He has acted in a partisan manner. But what the president said, was it different from what the Supreme Court said? So let us be practical and be balanced. That's all I will appeal to you to do.
Right, we're after the Constitution, and with due respect.
Yes, sir, go ahead, sir.
Okay, Rufai,
I just say proof to
Rufai, please, leave him alone. Senator Abe, I understand your passion. I mean, you are a major stakeholder in Rivers.
No, it's not action. I'm just worried because this affects my state and it affects my people.
Okay, you are a major stakeholder.
So we should be balanced.
You are a major stakeholder.
Yes.
We know that there was clear and present danger.
We need wise counsel. That's what we need.
We know there was clear and present danger in Rivers State. The president gave his reasons. He's the chief security officer of this country. And he knows what is happening in Rivers State. More than the anchors in Arise. I understand all of that.
So give him that credit.
I understand.
Sit down and accuse the president is being partisan. He's doing right.
Senator, no, just hold on. The senator has powers. The president has powers under Section 305. The bone of contention is that he does not have the right to collapse democratic structures. Nobody has ever said that the president cannot intervene. That's why Section 305 uses the word shall, because he has a responsibility to protect the country. But I asked you a question. Wait, before I let you go. I said, when are you going to visit the sole administrator? Because some people have been going to him. I want to know.
If I have the opportunity to visit the sole administrator, I will visit him. But what I want to say is that every emergency is not the same. So what steps may be necessary in one emergency may be different from the kind of steps that are required in another kind of emergency. So there is no law that says that if Jonathan took this kind of decision in one kind of emergency, every president must follow what one president did. Every emergency is different. The important thing is that the steps that the president takes will restore normalcy and bring order back to that part of the federation. And that is what the president is trying to do. And it should be supported by all Nigerians so that that emergency is resolved in the national interest. That's what I would say.
Senator Abe, thank you very much. Leboros Shoma, thank you very much. What else do you want to say? We want to close this program.
Thank you for protecting me from
public domain. The president's speech in the public domain. And because the senator talked about particulars that are not made public, that would be made public to the National Assembly. And then he also referred to these same particulars contained in the president's speech. There are no particulars that are not already in the public domain. And then lastly, when we talk about Rivers people, we all have a stake in Rivers. Rivers people.
Are you from Rivers?
Till today, I have families in Rivers. I grew up practically in Woji.
As settlers?
Yeah, I'm a Nigerian, and so we all have a stake there. We all have a stake. And so when we talk about these Rivers, the ordinary people of Rivers, have we taken a census of the ordinary people of Rivers? Okay, is it not the same thing? Lastly on this, it is clear and obvious that what has been done, that's why it is clear and obvious that there is no, security challenges in Rivers State. And that is why all of the stakeholders and all of those supporting Mr. President keep talking about the governor and the State House of Assembly. The governor and the State House of Assembly. These are issues meant for the Supreme Court to resolve, and which they have resolved.
The same 305 talks about imminent threat of danger.
But there is no imminent threat. But what you have is a disagreement between one arm of government and another arm of government, which is normal in a constitutional democracy.